What's up YouTube, Capital G here, got a couple of extra spicy duels for you guys to check out. I know that a lot of times we like to talk about you don't get to play in Yu-Gi-Oh! All the negations, 10 negates and all that stuff. Guys, this board is literally a negation for everything your opponent could possibly do. They don't get to use monster effects, they don't get to use spells, traps, they don't even get to summon or set cards on the board. It is actually ridiculous because you get to lock out all 5 of their monster zones turn 1. It's pretty damn ridiculous. Now we've seen boards like this, or we've seen boards similar to this, because there are cards like Saryuja's Skull Dread, and in the past we had things like Soul Charge and Firewall Dragon, but we know that with the return of Cyberstein, there are pretty derpy things that you can do with that card. And even though some kind of under the radar cards like ISO'd are still kind of low-key broken, they're still in the game, so you can do a whole lot of these plays. Power Tool Dragon, I would say a lot of times on my stream, like, I believe that's going to be the next Signer Dragon to get banned, because it's still a pretty strong card, and you know, it searches a lot of powerful equip cards. Now in the OCG, they don't have some of these cards like the Divine Ward or Divine Phoenix Blade, and you can see he's going to go in. He's going to use number 60 Douglas. That's going to bring back Summoner Monk. This card is such a strong card for these kind of decks that want to win the duel within the first couple of turns. I'm thinking that people are starting to realize that Douglas is a card that kind of lets you mortgage your future, but as long as you win the game by turn 1, it doesn't matter what happens after that. And Saryuja's going to be summoned. Doesn't even need the draw effect. That's how you know this combo is dank, when you don't even use the draw effect. Now you guys can see he has a telekinetic charging cell. Usually that means that you're trying to abuse Cyberstein. You want to summon Cyberstein, generally get it back from the graveyard. That can be done with the World Legacy Succession. And then you want to turn Cyberstein into a psychic monster so that you can do your derp cheese. All you got to do is go for this guy right here, Reaper-Docus. We remember this card with Summon Sorceress very fun, or not very fondly, but very vividly. Nobody thinks of like Summon Sorceress very fondly. He's going to turn it into that psychic monster. Now he can just activate Cyberstein's effect infinitely, and this is where generally a lot of the negation comes in, but this is what a twist. So he's going to summon Naturia Exterio. That's just telling your opponent you're not going to be using any spells and traps this game. That's pretty standard stuff right there. Goes into Apollousa. That would be 3 more monster negations. You're not going to need 4 monster negations for the Apollousa. Hell, even if you just had 2, it would still be perfectly fine. But this is the spice. He's going to summon a couple of, well, no, excuse me, that's not the spice yet. My bad, I jumped ahead. He summons a couple of level 9 fusions to get the True King of All Calamities, just adding on to the no monster effects. This is the spice of the play. Gonna summon a couple of Ojama fusion monsters, an Ojama King and Ojama Knight. One of them takes out 3 of your opponent's monster zones, and then the other one takes out 2 monster zones. This means that your opponent now has 0 zones to play with. Technically, they can use the extra monster zone, but how would they get a monster there? How would they get a monster there without using these? And this is just the cherry on top of the pie or the cake, guys. He knows that his opponent has 1 out. He's going to activate Prohibition, and he calls Dark Ruler no more. He says, bitch, you ain't playing no Yu-Gi-Oh at all. Guys, this field is basically unbreakable. There are a couple of things that I thought about that could actually beat this. The Winged Dragon Ra Spear mode was one of them. Other than that, you would kind of need, like, you'd need a combination of like Solemn Strike plus like another trap or another, like, you know, monster, or maybe like some type of maybe Mirror Force plus like Solemn Strike or something of that sort. Because the interesting thing about this board is even something like Super Poly wouldn't break it, because while he does have 2 dark monsters on the field, it doesn't matter. If you pick these 2 cards to Super Poly, the Ojamas would still be on the field, so they'd be locking you out and you wouldn't be able to even activate the Super Poly. He's going to use True King of All Calamities. His opponent says, I'm not even going to set the fucking Red Eyes thing with Chain Cap. I'm just going to go ahead and scoop this bad boy up, and obviously he is able to easily attack for game, and that is an easy victory for the player at the bottom. You know what? Let's go ahead and look at the deck and see maybe if something has changed since the previous versions. Obviously, I've never seen a build that does run the Ojama cards, but yeah, I think it definitely kind of makes sense. Just make it so your opponent doesn't get to summon anything at all. Alright, so this is what the deck looks like on paper. Most of you probably could have guessed what the monster lineup was going to be. Probably like card for card, because we see a lot of these turbo ISO decks, and then basically you kind of like transition over to Saryuja Skull Dread and Cyberstein, and a whole bunch of other things are kind of mashed in between. But most of your lineup is going to be Warrior. He's running 2 copies of Aqua Dolphin, because I'm guessing he's basically saying like, look man, if I'm able to get to Connector, there is no way that I don't want to be able to resolve this thing. So I'm running 2 copies of Aqua Dolphin just in case. Everything else is just kind of turbo warrior cards, Junk Forward, Goblinberg, the Blue Mountain Butterspy, etc., etc. Then you have your just combo like extenders, the Vision Hero Vion, which can dump Malicious into the graveyard. That gives you even more Link Fodder, because this card is back at 3 for some stupid reason. And then you look at the spell lineup in so many 3-ofs. This guy is fully committed to the cheese combo. 3 copies of Exchange. I could only imagine that that is to stop Nibiru, because his deck really doesn't have a way of playing around that card, other than man, it's been so long since I've seen Prohibition. Can you Prohibition and call Nibiru? You know what, I think you can, because it says cards and their effects cannot be used. So yeah, I guess you have a couple of ways of playing around Nibiru. So you know what, this might be the first version of this deck that plays around Nibiru, because you've got the Exchange and you also have the Prohibition, and obviously we saw in the duel it played around Dark Ruler no more. But 3 copies of Telekinetic Charging Cell. These are just because if you ever, I guess, have to like, you know, maybe sit, or if these cards are in your hand, you just want to be able to make sure that you can resolve your ISO'd for, you know, like a level 4, depending on what else you happen to draw. But yeah, definitely crazy, man. I've never seen anybody use, you know, 2 Ojama fusions turn 1 to shut off all fusion summoning, but now that's where we are.